Back in February, Martin Lewis did a show on the tax benefits of being married, which is well worth a watch if you've not thought about how it impacts on your income, and particularly how it affects those left behind after you die. And it's for this reason that I'm doing this video. Martin didn't really mention pensions and how married can affect your pension, or mainly the pension you leave behind. The teacher's pension scheme does have some nasty tricks up its sleeve when it comes to what happens to the pension when the teacher dies, and it depends very much on what kind of relationship a couple have. Let me give you an example from a head teachers conference I went to last April. At this conference there were two heads with very similar pension statements. Both of them had started in 1989, so both of them had about 36 years of service. Now I've made a little bit of an adjustment to these statements to highlight one very important difference. As you can see, they both have a pension of £35,000. Now that's a large pension, but remember these are both head teachers and they both have 36 years of service under their belts. There is a difference in one part of this statement that I want to focus on. It is the family service benefit, the family benefits amount. This is the amount that a partner will get when the teacher dies. So the partner of the head on the left would get a pension for the rest of their life for just under £17,000. But the partner of the head on the right is getting a pension of just over £9,000. That's not far off half the amount that the other head teacher's partner will get. So they've got very similar service, they've got very similar personal pensions and final salaries. So why is it that one of them's partner is going to get nearly twice as much as the other? Well, the simple answer is that the head on the left is married, whilst the head on the right is not. That they are just living together. And it is this that makes the difference. The reason for this is that over time the law has changed to recognise changes in society. But crucially, when laws change, they don't tend to backdate them to previous sessions. And so there will be points in time where a change happens and then the scheme makes the change from that point. And that is what is happening here with the pension entitlement given to the partner of a teacher who is not married. Or, and just to be clear on this, being in a civil partnership has exactly the same entitlement as being married. So when I talk about being married, you can take that as being a civil partnership as well. There are some key dates as to when a couple get official recognition, either by marriage or by entering a civil partnership. If they joined before the teacher left teaching, then service back to 1972 is counted in working out the partner's pension. If they joined officially after the teacher left teaching, then only service back to 1978 is counted. That's probably going to affect those who have already retired rather than those who are still in service. Now, in our case, as both heads didn't start until 1989, that part is irrelevant to them. But if you have been retired for a long time, you're in your 80s or 90s and still receiving a pension, then that might be of importance to you if you had service before the 1980s. However, that's for those who are married or in civil partnerships. What about those who are living together? And the problem is that the law changed in 2007. And what this means is that the service only from 2007 is counted. Now this does have an impact on our two heads. They started in 1989. So there's about 16 years that are not going to be counted. And it's this reason that one of those partners' pensions is half. Half of this service is being ignored. So one of them has got family benefits based on all 36 years because they're married, and the other one has got service only based on the 18 years from 2007 to 2025. So if you were teaching before 2007 and you want to ensure your partner gets the full benefit of your pension if you were to die before them, then you do need to look about making your relationship official. Now, what do I mean by official? Well, as far as the pension scheme is concerned, there are two types of partnerships. There is official and unofficial. You've got the official, which are, the two types there are marriage or a civil partnership. Those have equal status. And then you've got unofficial relationships, which essentially is pretty much anything else. There are some rules in this. To qualify as an unofficial partnership, then you've got to have been together for 2 years prior to somebody's death. If you get married on the same day that the teacher dies, that moves it into official and they get the survivor's pension. And there are a number of the helpers on the Facebook page who have actually gone into registrars and the like, and they find a lot of cases where they're coming in, they're finding people making things official while the person has got a terminal diagnosis and isn't expected to live very long, because they suddenly realise at that point that they're not passing on this pension. And you've seen, one teacher getting 16,000 and another getting 9,000. That's a big loss to be sucking up just because you have not got an official partnership. So, you've got to be 2 years. You've got to have a relationship that you can put evidence for that you've been together for at least 2 years before the teacher died. You've also got to be able to marry. It doesn't mean you've got to, it means you should be able to. So that's the kind of thing that if one of you was already married and has separated but not divorced, that would cause a problem, because that person would no longer not be legally allowed to be married, and so the survivor wouldn't get the pension. You've got to be living as if you were married. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be living together, but you would have to be able to show that you would have what might be considered a normal married relationship. And you've got to show that you are financially dependent on each other. This can be a little bit tricky. Many couples who have not tied the knot, and a lot of couples who come together later in their life, and maybe have children from different marriages, go to great pains to keep their finances separate. But if they do that, and they can show that they're independent finances, they may not qualify for a survivor's pension under the rules of the scheme. So things like, we're looking here, things like shared bank accounts, shared property, names being put on the mortgage, be careful with that. Things like having tenants in common, which might be used to split a property, might not be showing that you're actually sharing the property. So it's a tricky one to know about. Of course, if you've got a mortgage and you're both named on the mortgage and that one person has to take it over if the other dies, these are all kinds of things that can be used to show that you have financial independence. Being named on the last will and testament, etc. Of course, by contrast, that one piece of paper on the other side, on the official side, is sufficient to do away with all that proof. If you've got a marriage certificate or you've got a civil partnership certificate, that's it. That's all that is required to show that you do have entitlement to your partner's pension when they die. And there are other changes. There are other issues that happened in 2007. I said at the start that changes happen over time and that the scheme doesn't backdate changes. And there is another one to consider if you left the teaching profession before 2007, because something else came in 2007. If you die, then your partner does get a survivor's pension. But they will lose that pension if they remarry. Now, this only applies if the teacher had no service from 2007 onwards. If they went back into teaching, they did 1 or 2 months, January 2007, or even went back a bit later, 2010, then they move into the new regulations and they're allowed to have that pension carried on for life and not just until that survivor remarries. So in summary, the service that gets counted, it goes back to the 70s if you are married or in a civil partnership, but only goes back to 2007 if you're not in an official relationship. And if you don't have any service after 2007, then the survivor can lose the teacher's pension, the survivor's pension, if they remarry. So do consider whether or not you want to make your relationship official in order to protect them and give them the best benefits from your teacher's pension if you die before them. I hope that helps. Good luck with your plans.